Let's talk about the Titanic. You know the story. You've seen the movie. You know about the iceberg, the orchestra, the fancy dinners, I'm king of the world, and the endless debate about whether two people could fit on that floating door. The story we all know is a tragic romance between two beautiful, fictional people in first and, well, sort of, steerage. But here's the thing, that story, and most of the ones we tell, completely miss the point. The Titanic isn't a story about love. It's a story about class. We obsess over the millionaires, the Astiers, and the Guggenheims. But on that same unsinkable ship, separated by a few inches of steel and an ocean of social rules, were over 700 other people. They weren't sipping champagne. They were sitting on simple benches, crammed in the noisy, vibrating bottom of the boat, carrying everything they owned in a single suitcase. They were the third-class passengers. The immigrants. The steerage. And when the ship went down, they were the ones who paid the real price. This is the story of the Titanic from the deck everyone else forgot. First, let's get one thing straight. The Titanic was, from its first rivet to its last coat of paint, a physical manifestation of the class system. Up top, you had first class. It was absurd. It was a floating palace with a Parisian cafe, a Turkish bath, a swimming pool, and a gymnasium with, I'm not joking, a mechanical horse. A mechanical horse. Because God forbid you go a week without pretending to ride a horse. Then, way down in the hull, you had steerage. Now, the James Cameron movie makes it look like a rowdy, Irish-themed keg party in a cargo hold. And other myths paint it as a floating dungeon. The truth, as historian Stephen B.L. points in Down with the Old Canoe, is that for 1912, it was actually kind of nice. It wasn't a party, but it wasn't the bilge, either. Unlike older ships where you'd bring your own food, third class on the Titanic had its own dining room serving 3 hot meals a day. The cabins were small, clean, and had running water, luxuries many of these passengers had never had back home. And that's the key. These weren't just poor people. They were hopeful people. They were 709 individuals and families from Ireland, Sweden, Finland, the Middle East, and all over Europe who had sold everything they owned to buy that ticket. That ticket wasn't a vacation, it was a one-way pass to a new life in America. They weren't on the Titanic to party. They were on it to become. And they were just a few days away from making it. When the iceberg hit, the difference in experience was immediate. In first class, it was a faint, grinding jar. Some millionaires were annoyed that their card game was interrupted. One passenger, as told in Walter Lord's A Night to Remember, thought a propeller blade had fallen off. It was a curiosity, an inconvenience. In third class, it was chaos. It was a loud, violent shudder that woke everyone up. It was the sound of ice falling into their small recreation area. It was the immediate, terrifying feeling of cold seawater rising around their ankles. And this is where the most dangerous myth of all comes in, the locked gates. The movie shows a villainous steward with a key, physically barring the steerage passengers from going up. The reality was both simpler and more sinister. The gates were locked. But not always out of malice. They were locked because of design. US immigration laws at the time were obsessed with preventing the spread of diseases from undesirable immigrants. The ship was literally designed as a labyrinth to keep the steerage passengers separate from everyone else, so they could be processed at Ellis Island without contaminating the rich. The path from the third-class cabins to the boat deck was a confusing, multi-level maze of unmarked corridors, steep ladders, and, yes, locked barriers designed to keep the classes apart. There was no evacuation plan. No crew members to guide them. Many passengers didn't even speak English. They were trapped in a maze, in the dark, on a sinking ship, with no one telling them where to go. Up on the boat deck, the famous women and children first policy was in effect. But even that was a lie. The real, unspoken policy was first-class women and children first. The lifeboats were launched half-empty from the first-class decks before most steerage passengers even knew what was happening. While crew members were practically begging rich women to get into the boats, they were actively holding back the surge of desperate immigrants who had finally found their way up from the maze below. When all the screaming was over and the Carpathia arrived to pick up the survivors, the numbers told the real story. Let's look at the receipts. About 61% of first-class passengers survived. About 42% of second-class passengers survived. Only 24% of third-class passengers survived. But it gets worse. Look at the men. 32% of first-class men survived. That's compared to only 16% of third-class men. And this is the one. The one that tells you everything you need to know. More first-class men survived the Titanic than third-class children. Let me say that again. A millionaire in his dinner jacket had a better chance of living than a child from steerage. Of the 79 children in third class, 52 of them died. Entire families, like the Sage family, a mother, a father, and their 9 children, were wiped out completely. All 11 of them. Lost. We remember the Titanic with a strange sense of romance. We debate the door. We hum the song. We remember the names of the rich, the Astiers, the Strausses, the Guggenheims. Their names are carved into monuments. But the 530 men, women, and children from steerage who died that night, they just became a statistic. They are the true fallen of this story. They were the people who were one locked gate, one unmarked corridor, one social rule away from a new life. Their echo is a cold, hard reminder. The Titanic wasn't a romance. It was a tragedy. And the iceberg didn't care who you were, but the world, and the ship, very much did. Thanks for watching. If you want to learn more about a piece of history everyone thinks they know, let us know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more echoes of the fallen.